In this video, I'm sharing with you everything you need to know about advanced movement on controller. I'll discuss how to do these mechanics, when to use them, and why, and this applies to both players on console and controller players on PC. Now, movement needs to be an asset in your gameplay, but it should not be confused with being the main focus of it. Your movement in Apex should complement your aim, game sense, and communication skills, but if all you focus on is movement, it won't matter if you can 360 wall bounce on an opponent's head, because they will eventually just kill you if you're not outputting damage. And I say this because most players do confuse fast and flashy movement tech with the pinnacle of being a great player in Apex, and this isn't what it seems. I have over 6,000 hours in Apex Legends, and I'm going to be sharing with you some things about movement that most content creators would rather you not understand. The first mechanic I'd like to go over is wall bouncing. This is one of the most useful advanced movement techniques in the game. Now, some of you may be familiar with how to do this already, but I still want to explain when to do it and why you should be doing it. First, let's go over how to do this consistently. Now, you're going to want to go at a wall, box, or other piece of architecture at an angle. Then you're going to slide jump at it. And the jump needs to be timed correctly at the right distance away from the wall. Now, coming out of that slide jump, you're going to be heading towards the wall. I turn my stick in towards whichever side it is on, and then I press jump again right when I connect to the wall. Then I turn the opposite way and look away from the wall. And this will take some practice if you can't do it, so give yourself some time in learning it. It's slide, jump, look towards the wall, jump again, and look away from the wall. Once you feel like you got it down, it's mandatory you start doing it all over the map in the games you're playing in. This will help train your mind into remembering to do it during engagements, because if you never implement it in the downtime throughout your games, you will never remember to do it when it matters. Be mindful of the fact that different legends have different hitboxes, so their heights vary, and this can affect wall bounces. Taller legends like Pathfinder may not be able to wall bounce at the same angle as Wraith or Lifeline can, because Apex thinks Pathfinder is trying to mantle or climb on that specific object you're trying to bounce off of. So timing the slide at the right distance will vary on each legend and each object that you're trying to bounce off of. So when should you be implementing this into fights? Well, I think there's 3 reasons. To be evasive and take less damage as you reposition, to break line of sight and surprise opponents so you can output damage, or just to be flashy on your opponents. Now, if you're using it to be evasive or to break line of sight, then it's a defensive tactic and should be used as a means to reposition, and hopefully in doing so you're taking less damage. It won't always work, but nothing in Apex does. If you're using it on the offensive end to surprise opponents, then be ready to shoot as soon as they are in your field of view. The wall bounce is going to be quick, and as soon as you land, that surprise factor is over. So capitalizing on that brief moment where the enemy doesn't know what you're doing or doesn't know how to combat it is critical. This mechanic is a great way to output some serious damage while at the same time avoiding taking damage. I would utilize this if you are in a disadvantaged fight where you have to take on multiple opponents, but maybe you won't have the space and time to heal after you fight the first enemy. If you could implement something like this and end up taking less damage, well, you could increase your chances of winning that 1v3 or 1v2. Another main reason as to why I say practice this throughout your matches is you will learn what is possible with the wall bounce and what isn't, what works and what doesn't. If you never really figure that part out, you will never end up implementing it into the fights that you get into. Before I teach you guys how to super glide, it would be amazing if you could tap that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Thank you for doing so. Okay, super gliding is a tough one, and it's definitely not something you need to implement into your gameplay right away. It's a niche movement mechanic that has its use cases, but it's extremely difficult for me to pull off since I hold the controller normally and I don't generally use any paddles. But with that said, you basically want to press jump and crouch at the same time from when you're about to come up from mantling an edge. So here's a couple examples of me doing it, and here's an example of doing something very similar, but is not it. It's just a slide jump. As you'll notice, the super glide will send you further out than the traditional slide jump. Super gliding should be used as a surprise move to close the gap to your enemy, or can be used to retreat from one point to another in an unpredictable manner. In a more ideal world, I'd rather see most of you just learn to achieve a consistent slide jump on or off of things and implement that into your gameplay. It will be easier to do and will have similar results to the super glide. Next, let's talk about bunny hopping. This movement technique is another helpful mechanic to be used in certain moments where crouching and moving makes you a harder target to hit. It has its offensive and defensive use cases, but it's not something that I utilize a ton, and I'm going to explain why. See, in order to do this on controller, you either need paddles, a different button layout than button puncher, or play claw. I use button puncher, but I have crouch on toggle, not hold, and this does make it extremely difficult to do for more than a couple hops. So I have added a paddle and put crouch to hold to show you how to do this. You're going to slide jump, hold crouch down, and consistently press jump while moving forward. You need to have some momentum though to keep you going, otherwise you will come to a stop or catch a dead slide. Bunny hopping was originally really strong in the beginning of Apex because it wouldn't slow you down as much when you were healing. Now you can still use it while healing, but as I said, you definitely want some momentum while doing so. Everybody loves zip lines and the sick movement you can create from them, so let me show you how to have better movement while utilizing these zip lines. The first movement tech is what I call the quick interact. This is where you will be able to interact with the zip and create momentum from side to side and above you. This makes it so you don't actually have to ride the zip line and become a stagnant target for your opponents. The way I do this is X for interact and then quickly press jump while simultaneously looking the opposite direction. So if I'm looking left, on the first interact, I press jump quickly and then look right. Same thing goes if I'm looking forward and then I want to turn behind me. And this is more useful in the zipline buildings if I'm looking forward towards the wall and then I turn around quickly doing a 180 and I'll be looking in front of whichever floor I'm heading towards. Now this took me a while to learn and it's pretty awkward to do. So regardless of how you hold the controller, it is something that's definitely possible. But as I said, I don't use paddles and I don't play claw. So it's not super organic to be pulling this off consistently and remembering to do it when you first figure out how to do it during these fights. In order to pull off the zipline super jump though, you have to press interact and then spam jump twice. So for me, it's X and then AA really quickly. If I'm trying to do this and go up the zipline, I also have to incorporate a 180 quickly after I interact with the zip. The super jump is an extremely important mechanic to get down as you improve your movement in Apex Legends, and I utilize this mechanic on vertical or horizontal ziplines frequently. Most opponents will not be ready for it if you do it in front of them and then capitalize on your advantage in that moment. It also makes minimal sounds while on the zipline, so they may not even hear you coming. That's probably never happened to any of you though, right? I mean, the audio is known to be flawless in Apex. One important factor to mention regarding all of these advanced movement techniques is that Legends can play a small or a large role in going about implementing these. Some of the bigger Legends like Gibby or Caustic may feel more awkward trying to attempt these techniques, whereas the smaller Legends like Wraith and Lifeline tend to feel smoother, at least for me personally. Legends like Pathfinder, Horizon, and Valkyrie all have their pros and cons when it comes to additional movement techniques centered around their abilities. The bottom line is that you can achieve all of these movement techniques with any Legend, but I do think you will find some preferences with specific Legends as you go about implementing them. Do keep in mind that all of these advanced movement techniques are not a requirement to becoming a great player in Apex, especially on controller. They look cool, but they are niche, so learn them and try to incorporate them at the right times. What I think is way more valuable for your game are these 5 simple movement mechanics that most players overlook. Check this video out next. Peace.